Good evening, and thank you, Professor Choi, for inviting me to share on my vast experiences on this topic here. It's quite a long time ago since I dated, but I kissed dating goodbye the moment I met my wife. So I never started dating again since then. Would like for you to meet my wife, Professor Schoenhoff. She taught here at Handlung for about 6 years in DLE, and so now she is my support. All right, it's a delicate topic, but it's a beautiful topic. To date or not to date, it's a big question we always ask ourselves at one point in our lives. How should we handle our relationships with the opposite sex? And on the one hand, it's like, as Professor Choi said, it's just wonderful that we have these attraction to people of the opposite sex. It's just the way we have been created by God. It's just a mechanism in us that draws us to one another at a particular time in our lives. And to do it in an appropriate way so that it's beneficial and healthy for all of us for the future is very important. And of course, as Professor Choi said, we're all created in the image of God. And so God purposed that this way. There's a receiver in us, a natural attraction to the opposite sex. And that was from the beginning. When Adam was created and he finally, he was not attracted to any of the animals that he was naming or the trees in the field. But when he saw Eve, he said, finally, flesh of my flesh, bone of my flesh, and I'll call her, I couldn't think of a different name, so he left the word man in there, but he said woman. Okay. So it's a little bit of an arrogance there, huh? On Adam's part. So, how do we answer this question, to date or not to date? I'm sure many of you have answered it in some way already, or some of you are in dating relationships and you are wondering what's the purpose of it and why am I in this relationship? Hopefully you asked that question. Great. And so let's just, I've taught on this not entirely the whole semester, but in the marriage class, when I taught the marriage class, we, of course, touched on this topic. And I had students participate in coming up with answers. And so some of what is, for example, in the definition is has come from the class. And so some of the things that they mentioned was, what is the definition of dating? So some said, a special romantic relationship between two people of the opposite sex. Students came up with that answer, good answer, without any particular time commitment. And that is creating already some questions there. So it begins, somehow you're getting attracted to each other and you begin a relationship and there are no particular guidelines or rules that you have committed to. No time commitment. You don't know how long this relationship will last. It may last for 2 days, for 2 weeks, for 2 months, for 2 years. You don't know when you begin. This relationship, a dating relationship, is usually to the exclusion of other friendships. There's a difference between dating and friendship. Friendship, it's an open relationship. You relate to many other people at the same time you're having close friendships. But in a dating relationship, you become quite exclusive. You don't want another person to hang around you, when you're going out with somebody. You kind of have ways of, please move over there. Without restriction, except those voluntarily agreed upon. And that's already a step positive in the positive direction. So what is allowed in this particular relationship? But most people don't even ask that question. It's just kind of by default. Basically, the one only rule in dating is that there are no rules. Okay, that's sort of the assumption. Dating as an institution is relatively a recent phenomenon, and some sort of trace it back to when could it have emerged, because there were times when dating was not a practice in a society. Dating was always linked with other institutions such as marriage and family. Okay, so the beginning of a relationship was always connected with it should lead eventually to marriage. It was not a standalone relationship. Historically, though, in most societies and during much of human history, marriages were arranged by parents or older siblings or relatives, with the goal not necessarily being love. So the question when parents arranged marriages was not, well, do you love her? Do you love him? Because, they oftentimes hadn't even seen each other. So it was oftentimes for economic stability, political alliances, and so that is cross-culturally the case. Accordingly, there was little need for a temporary trial period, such as dating, before any permanent community-recognized union was formed between a man and a woman. So, how did it become such a popular phenomenon in our society? Now, reasons people give, let's check that out. And, just sort of think along. What reasons would you give for wanting to date or being in a dating relationship right now? What reasons? Why? Okay. I mean, should be a question that we ask ourselves when we begin a dating relationship, or even contemplate, or some think, I wish I would be in a dating relationship. But ask yourself, why? Why would you want to be in a dating relationship? Okay, what's the purpose of it? Some say it's for fellowship, overcoming loneliness. We could stop right there. Why are you in a position of being lonely? Lonely is a very subjective feeling, and in a large campus like this with over 4,000 students, and we've seen that in large organizations like my wife and I, we worked in YWAM for many, many years, and even on the campus in Kona, where we worked for many years, we had surveys, and one of the frequent problems was, now many of those people, they were older than you are, but one of the frequent problems was loneliness. How can we be lonely in large groups like this? What is it in us that gives us that sensation of loneliness? So some try to begin a dating relationship and think they can resolve that. Companionship. I have somebody to talk to, and some of you are in a dating relationship and maybe in a distant relationship, and you're messaging continuously on the phone at least for an hour or two each day. And so companionship, you're seeking somebody you can communicate with. Or learning how to relate to the opposite sex. And that can be, as we will see in a bit, a positive aspect. Many mention comfort. It is comforting to be in connection with somebody who seems to understand you, seems to like you, and definitely is willing to spend time with you. It's showing respect by committing time and communication with you. So for some people, it was for the purpose of experiencing some emotional comfort being with that person that cares. And then, of course, there's the other side. There's skinship, and some of them are pursuing dating relationship because they are seeking sexual pleasures. And that can be a primary reason for some people. All right. Now, there are definitely gender differences when you ask, why are you dating? there's a general perception that men and women approach dating differently. And that's one of the reasons why the advice for each sex varies greatly. When you're talking in counseling, for example, and they experience stress in the relationship, there are differences in why there is stress by females versus males. For example, it's a common belief that men often seek women based on beauty and youth. In fact, the study that I read, there were many more things that men were looking for when they're looking for a dating partner. Men are strongly motivated to seek acceptance for their masculinity. And it gives them a sense of assurance if girls comment him on his looks and on his masculine strength. Thus, the pursuit of sexual advances in the dating is in the dating relationship. And guys oftentimes feel strengthened and encouraged in their masculinity when they are able to persuade the girl to get involved in sexual activity. Somehow masculinity and sexuality are closely linked, as you can understand. Now, men's primary route for personal worth is significance. And so men strive in a dating relationship if they are given this encouragement by women that they are somebody special and they are, quite something. They're macho, they're cool, they're, a special guy. So men will strive in order to get some self-worth out of experiencing significance. And that is, of course, not only in the dating relationship, but it's throughout their life. Now, it's not that they don't need a sense of security, too, but the primary self-worth is obtained through experiencing significance. Of course, later on that translates in the career, ambitions, and anything that they get involved in. Now, the stereotype for women is that they seek well-educated men who are their age or older with high-paying jobs. Now, that's not the case yet, but eventually, when you're looking for a lifelong partner, that is quite... You guys, you can come over here. There's some empty seats. Feel free to just walk over here, because this may take 2 hours here, standing that long. Yes. All right, so for the stereotype for women, of course, that means not all women are feeling in the same way. However, some research suggests that women are the choosier of the genders. Since reproduction is a much larger investment for women who have more to lose by making bad choices. I'll come back to that a bit. Women are almost always thinking long-term and marriage. Women's primary route is security. So they may not, the girls may not give the guys initially the impression that they are thinking long-term already, but their hope, their expectation is much more long-term than it's for the guys. Guys are mostly satisfied if they have a good relationship and a dating relationship, sometimes for a short time, but they can get easily distracted and move on to another relationship. And of course that, you'll see, has a lot of pitfalls. You can interrupt anytime if you have a question or a comment, okay? I'm ready to, but there will be a time for question and answers afterwards. Now, so the question then is dating a plus or a minus? So, we know, and many of you experience that frequently, it takes up a lot of time. Now, you came to Handong Global University for a primary purpose, and that was to advance academically, to develop in leadership skills, in the giftings, the abilities that God has given you. And that is quite important. And some people, and we have counseled a lot of students over this is my 9th year here in Korea, but we have been in counseling relationships with many Koreans well before we ever came to Handong here. But it takes up a lot of time, and during that time, you put aside some of the primary goals for which you actually came to the university, and you have to be mindful of that. Keeps you from other friendships. As I said earlier, dating relationships are usually exclusive. You don't, and sometimes you even abandon existing friendships that you have had already for some time, but suddenly you don't have time for close friends that you once had. It's costly, because what do? You can't go for walks in the beautiful nature here forever, so you go out and spend, and have to pay for taking your date out, hopefully, for the guys especially. I don't know what the expectations are these days, but when I took Elsie out before we got married, it wasn't even a question. The guy pays for the meal, right? How about in your situation? Absolutely. And that's why the relationship has lasted now. We have been married for almost 49 years. Next year it's going to be golden. I won't be here, so I won't invite you. But it can be very expensive dating too. You have to be creative to not always go to the most impressive places, but often results in broken hearts too. And we have counseled numerous people. Sometimes it can be very devastating, and especially if you have dated for some time and you had some expectations, and it looked like there was an agreement that this is going to be it, and then suddenly something happens, and invariably, it's painful. No matter how you deal with it, there's always pain involved when a relationship of this nature breaks up. Because if it continues for a while, this relationship, increasingly you become more open to one another. Self-disclosure, you talk about some secrets in your life that you had never told anybody about. And then when it breaks up, there's the fear, and it has happened, that the other person may exploit some of the confidentiality that you trusted that other person with. Keeps you from forming other relationships. It's being at the university is a tremendous opportunity for networking, for building relationships with people in your major, with people on campus. There are a lot of interesting people that you oftentimes miss out on because you're in an exclusive dating relationship. Okay. Skinship, gradual increase in physical involvement, is almost unavoidable in this kind of a relationship, because as you open yourself up confidentially, talking about things about your family, some of the dysfunctionalities in your families, etc., you become closer and closer, and you comfort each other, and oftentimes that then spills over into physical relationships. And boundaries are flexible and uncertain, but also relationships like this, they don't increase your relationship with God. We worked with a gentleman from South Africa, and he had a powerful ministry in the northern part of South Africa among the Zulus, and a powerful spiritual ministry, and he had a team of people that he was working with. And so we sat down with him. He was teaching in YWAM at that time when we were leading schools, and so we quizzed him and wanted to know, how does the anointing of God come on his ministry? And he was saying, as long as people stay committed to God primarily, as soon as people on my team develop a horizontal relationship, and he doesn't discourage that, he says it's not wrong, but they lose their sensitivity to hear from the Holy Spirit. And so in dating relationship, oftentimes, relationship with God is second and is on the back burner. Now, dating leads to intimacy, but not necessarily to commitment. Okay. Commitment is still not developing well in a dating relationship. Commitment to what? Commitment to respect for one another, commitment for confidentiality, commitment to let go of any other relationship. Oftentimes, guys still continue with relationship on the internet while they're dating here, or maybe even interested in other girls. So commitment means commitment to this relationship, to this person that I'm dating right now. Dating tends to skip the friendship stage of a relationship. Friendship, as I said, is an open relationship, invites others, it practices hospitality and caring for others, ministries, and friendship is different from dating. Definitely would not involve any kind of skinship. In dating, the physical part is mistakenly seen as love, and that's a pitfall. Oh, he loves me so much, because he's interested and compliments you on your appearance, etc. As I said earlier, guys are particularly vulnerable to go to the visual part of the person they would like to date. And that's like Job in Job 31 verse 1, he had this saying, I've made a covenant with my eyes not to look at a young girl lustfully. And so that's a temptation that guys have, and there's a lot of temptation on campus as well as on the internet. So in dating, the physical part is mistakenly seen as love. It has nothing to do with love. Most of the time it's just pure lust. Distracts from preparing for the future. A lot of the things that could become pitfalls in a marriage relationship, you overlook in a dating relationship. Oh, we love each other. We are caring for each other. Oh, I can handle that, And you see things that you tend to overlook and don't prepare properly for the future. And also, as I said, because in this exclusive relationship, you miss out on other relationships that could help you build links for the future later on. So it hinders more and distracts you from preparing for the future. Now, often gives a distorted perception of the other's character. So you overlook things of how he talks, how he behaves in group situations. For example, you are in this dating relationship and you meet old friends, he meets old friends, and instead of introducing you, he's almost embarrassed to introduce you. How does he interact? And how does he respect and honor you in group relationships? Is he even aware that you're there or not? And oftentimes, it can be very hurtful. Often gives a distorted perception of the other person's character. Now, there are some pluses, but I'm cautious on the pluses, but it is possible. Of course, it's not that all dating relationships bankrupted you or could bankrupt you. And some dating relationships have ended up in wonderful long-term marriage relationships. Okay, so we have to recognize that. So it could teach you how to relate properly to the opposite sex, especially if you grew up in a household with siblings of the same gender. And a dating relationship, suddenly, you're closely together, and how do I talk? A guy who grew up with another guy in the family, how do I talk to a girl? What's appropriate? I can't just kind of talk the way I've always talked to my buddies or brothers, and it's a rough talk, etc. You have to soften a bit. And same with the girls, she may be shocked to see sometimes how guys behave when she is in a dating relationship. So it can be a learning experience. Okay, could teach you communication skills. Because you're with the one person. Let's say you spend an evening together. What do you talk about? In my marriage class, I have a printout of 4 or 5 pages of topics to talk about in a courtship relationship, when you're preparing for marriage. You run out of topics. And you, of course, some topics in dating relationships are taboo because you don't feel free confiding in the other person in a dating relationship, because you never know. Is this a lasting relationship? Or is it, how secure am I in this relationship? It could teach you manners. Now, I don't know, guys, when you have a car and you take your girl to a place, do you go and open the door for the girl? Of course, you all do, right? Or, you go into the restaurant, do you barge ahead and she's where is she? Or do you open the door and say, well, girls, you can train the guys. Just